5 inversiones. Hemos acompañado a grandes corporativos.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a nuestra tercera edición de FINNOSUMMIT Hour. Mi nombre es Andrés Fontao y soy cofundador de Finovista. Como muchos sabrán, Finovista es una organización de impacto que potencia la transformación de la industria financiera y aseguradora, construyendo puentes de colaboración entre startups y grandes empresas para crear un mundo mejor. Fundada en 2012, Finovista trabaja con emprendedores y corporaciones a través de actividades colaborativas, como conferencias, programas de aceleración y de escalamiento, programas de engagement con startups y programas de innovación para impulsar los viajes de innovación de grandes actores de las industrias financieras. También nos hemos consolidado como el inversor fintech más activo y uno de los actores más relevantes del ecosistema emprendedor en América Latina. En adición a promover eventos como este, Finovista desarrolla los programas de aceleración y escalamiento Startup Bootcamp en América Latina y programas de innovación corporativa con clientes como Visa, BBVA, HSBC y Scotiabank. Formamos parte del grupo global de innovación y venture building, Rainmaking, y trabajamos con startups y grandes empresas en actividades colaborativas para impulsar su viaje de innovación. Queremos agradecer a nuestros patrocinadores del evento de hoy, Galileo y Tiaxa, ya que sin su apoyo, estas iniciativas virtuales no serían posibles. A nuestra audiencia, no olviden de visitar los booths virtuales en la sección Sponsors dentro de la plataforma Umbrella para que conozcan a fondo las interesantes soluciones que nos ofrecen estos dos patrocinadores. Para que aprovechen al máximo este evento, asegúrense de explorar todas las funcionalidades que hemos habilitado en la plataforma desde donde estamos transmitiendo, esta plataforma de Umbrella. Si surge cualquier duda, pueden buscar en el booth de Finovista dentro de la sección Sponsors y resolveremos cualquier duda que puedan tener. Queremos también agradecer a la audiencia, por supuesto, que nos acompañan hoy en esta tercera cita virtual, que pretende ser el punto de reunión, el punto de encuentro de todos los entusiastas de las tendencias que marcarán el futuro de las finanzas y los seguros en América Latina. Aprovechamos para invitarles a que, nos sigan en redes sociales. Pueden ver abajo en sus pantallas la cuenta de Twitter, @FINNOSUMMIT, y el hashtag FSHour. Estaremos regalando hoy 2 entradas, una entrada para una persona y un acompañante para que puedan asistir en persona a FINNOSUMMIT 2021. A la persona que más comparta el hashtag FSHour en redes sociales. Mañana, desde nuestros canales de redes sociales, desde Twitter, estaremos anunciando el ganador o la ganadora de estos 2 boletos. También les quiero invitar a que corran la voz entre sus amigos, sus conocidos, sus colegas, cualquier otro entusiasta del Fintech o del Insurtech que pueden tener cercanos a vosotros, para que aprovechen el networking entre todas las personas quienes estamos innovando en el sector de la banca y de los seguros. Es una pena que por el momento no sea posible saludarnos en persona, pero seguimos construyendo una comunidad para que cuando sea posible vernos en persona, pues sea aún más grande esta comunidad y este ecosistema que estamos construyendo. Para esta edición de hoy, contamos con un panel que abordará un tema muy interesante y muy relevante, que es una de las tendencias en el sector que está surgiendo, que son las plataformas de la economía colaborativa, también conocido como el gig economy. Hoy nos acompañan los fundadores de Belvo, R5 y Geru, que estarán contando sobre las soluciones fintech que están desarrollando para que los trabajadores de la gig economy mejoren su vida financiera. La conversación entre ellos será moderada por Jenny Johnstone, inversionista de impacto de la firma de Venture Capital Flourish Ventures, quienes recientemente publicaron un estudio acerca del impacto de la pandemia en las finanzas personales de los trabajadores de la gig economy. Este panel se realizará en inglés. Al terminar esta charla, escucharemos los pitches de 3 startups emergentes de la región que están innovando en este segmento específicamente, ¿no? Y que pueden llegar a ser los próximos unicornios de la región. Los pitches también serán en español. O los pitches serán en español, mejor dicho. Los que volvéis, ¿no? Conocéis que queremos que estos eventos sean interactivos, colaborativos, ¿no? Y para ello utilizamos una herramienta conocida como SparkUp. Para hacer que el evento sea más interactivo, utilizaremos esta herramienta durante el transcurso del evento. Primero, hagamos unas pruebas. Pueden ver ya en sus pantallas cómo acceder, ¿no? Mediante código QR que pueden escanear con sus teléfonos móviles o accediendo desde cualquier navegador web o móvil, introduciendo la dirección finovista.sparkup.live e introduciendo el código todo mayúsculas AUVVP. Ahí las ven. Y así, pues bueno, les voy a hacer la primera pregunta para calentar y acostumbrarnos un poco a esta herramienta. Y quiero, por favor, que respondan todos a la pregunta, ¿desde qué país nos acompañan hoy? Vamos a ver un poco la diversidad geográfica que tenemos entre los asistentes de esta tercera edición de FINNOSUMMIT Hour. Y ahí vemos la presencia de México, por supuesto. Mucho México. Chile y Ecuador también, bienvenidos. Colombia. Argentina. Uruguay. Vemos una fuerte presencia de América Latina. Si bien alguien nos está acompañando desde Nueva Zelanda. Guatemala también. Desde la Patagonia en Argentina. Estupendo. Costa Rica. Bueno, vemos ahí una presencia de América Latina. Estados Unidos. Welcome. Muy bien, pues vamos a darles unos segundos más. Veo que la gente sí se está acostumbrando a utilizar la herramienta. Muy bien, pues bienvenidos a todos los que nos acompañan desde estos países y muchos más, ¿no? Que seguramente no han llegado a poder registrar, ¿no? Desde Polonia también. Muy bien. Y ahora pues vamos a pasar a una segunda pregunta que sí es un poco más relevante y conectada con el contenido que vamos a estar viendo hoy. Y quisiera, por favor, que la audiencia respondiese a esta siguiente pregunta. ¿Con qué frecuencia utilizas plataformas de gig economy? Plataformas como, por ejemplo, ¿no? Rappi, Uber o Cornershop, ¿no? Son solo los ejemplos, sabemos que hay muchas más allá afuera. Por favor, responda, ¿no? Si son, ¿no? Usuarios A, ¿no? Muy seguidos, B, regularmente, C, casi nunca o D, nunca. Vamos a darle unos segundos a que puedan contestar esta pregunta también. Ahí vemos que la mayoría pues son usuarios asiduos, ¿no? Muy seguidos regularmente, ¿no? A estas plataformas. Un 6% casi nunca y un 3% que nunca ha utilizado estas herramientas, ¿no? Bueno, un 3% ahora. Muy bien, pues bueno, veo que la audiencia está cómoda utilizando esta plataforma. Volveremos a utilizar SparkUp más adelante, en concreto en la sección de pitches de las startups. Así que bueno, antes de comenzar y antes de darle entrada a nuestro panel, ¿no? De hoy, quisiera dirigir vuestra atención a un corto vídeo de uno de nuestros dos sponsors, ¿no? Tiaxa. Al terminar este vídeo, daremos ya entrada directa a nuestro panel sobre FinTech en la Gig Economy, que de nuevo será moderado por Jenny Johnstone de Flourish Ventures. Yo regreso con ustedes después del panel. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias a los sponsors y por la interacción, Andrés, y gracias por reunirnos para hablar sobre servicios financieros para gig workers. Perdóname, para mi español es más fácil para todos si hablamos en inglés, so please forgive me. We are here today because there are millions of gig workers in Latin America, and pre-crisis, 55% of employment in general in Latin America was informal. Yet we know that only 1/3 of Latin Americans have bank accounts, only 40% have access to savings, 20% have access to credit, and somewhere below 10% have life or health insurance. The population is huge, it's growing, and it's financially vulnerable. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today to talk to you about financial services for gig workers. My name is Jenny Johnston, and I'm an investor at Flourish Ventures and focused on our strategy in Latin America. We at Flourish are a global financial health-focused fund investing in entrepreneurs whose innovations help people achieve financial health and seize economic opportunity. Along with our entrepreneurs, we partner with thought leaders and innovators in policy and regulation to shape a more inclusive global economy. We have a growing portfolio in LatAm, companies including Neon, Guiabolso, and Swap in Brazil, and Albo in Mexico. And we always try to have a deep understanding and empathy at Flourish for the precarious financial lives of the populations we wish to serve and that our portfolio is serving. And so we try to complement our work in the field with primary research to elevate the voices of consumers. Consequently, when COVID-19 hit earlier this year, we began tracking the experiences of gig economy workers across the globe to learn more about how they were faring during the crisis and understand how fintechs could better serve them. Our research is called The Digital Hustle, Gig Worker Financial Lives Under Pressure. And we launched country-specific studies first in Brazil, and then in India, Indonesia, South Africa, and the US. Overall, what we found is that gig workers cannot build a financial cushion and are very vulnerable to sudden economic shocks. In Brazil specifically, we partnered with our portfolio company Neon and Me Fácil and found that almost 90% of Brazilian gig workers lost a significant portion of their income since lockdown. We found that over 2/3 of Brazilian gig workers now earn less than $200 a month compared to less than 10% before the pandemic. Furthermore, we also learned that more than half reported that they could not cover expenses for a week without borrowing money if they lost their main source of income. This, unfortunately, is the harsh reality for the millions of gig workers in Latin America who lack traditional employer-offered benefits like insurance, like sick pay, like pensions. Which is why it's my pleasure to be here today, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Mateo Garamillo from Hiru, Pablo Armida from R5, and Pablo Viguera from Belvo, who are each building different solutions and addressing different parts of the problem. Before we get started and dive in, I would like to turn it over to the entrepreneurs to share a brief introduction of themselves and their companies in a few sentences. Let's go in alphabetical order. So Mateo, we'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Jenny. Wow, thrilled to be here. Obviously sharing a stage with Pablo Armida and Pablo Viguera, both who are creating solutions for the most underlying issues in the gig economy workforce in Latin America. I'm from Cali, Colombia. I grew up there. The initial part of my career was a little bit more classic, working for Johnson & Johnson, and then consultancy and Endeavor. And then I had the opportunity to launch Uber in my hometown in Cali, where I definitely helped change the way I looked into technology and how technology affects the real world, the physical world. And I spent at Uber 6 years, where I met my co-founder, Steven. We both moved, got transferred to Mexico City. And then last year, we had the opportunity to start our own company, Heru, which is basically we're trying to create solutions tailor-made for the gig economy workforce in Latin America. And we're going to be talking a little more about that together with the Pablos later on our conversation. So thank you.
Fantastic, Mateo. Thanks so much. Pablo A., over to you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you, Jenny, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Pablo Armida, and I am a product lead and co-founder of R5. In R5, we sell insurance and loans online to car and motorcycle owners. And what makes us different is that we use data and technology to evaluate the risk better and therefore we offer lower prices to our customers. One of the key aspects of our products is that they are designed to improve the financial position of our clients. And as of today, we have more than 180,000 paying customers in Colombia. And a large pool of those are gig economy workers. So I'm happy to be here today and share our insights with you.
Thanks, Pablo A. Last but not least, Pablo V.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny, for the intro, and likewise thrilled to be on this panel with everyone. So a bit about me. So I'm co-founder of Belvo. Belvo, in a few short sentences, so is the open banking and open finance API platform for Latin America. We're a little bit in a different business as Mateo and Pablo Armida were in the trenches of the infrastructure, and we essentially allow fintech innovators and developers to access and interpret their end users' bank and financial data, right? So our API platform is essentially the easiest and most developer-friendly way to connect bank accounts or financial data to fintech apps, right? So at the moment, we're live in Mexico and Colombia, where we have coverage of over 85% of the market in terms of deposits and credit, talking about banked population. And we work with some of the leading fintechs locally, covering things or applications like credit solutions, neobanks, accounting, ERP providers, and so on. And we'll soon be launching in Brazil, right? So in under a month, we'll also go live in Brazil. A little bit more about us. So we're LatAm first and LatAm only. And our team has deep expertise in in the trenches of financial services, and also at leading fintechs globally, like Revolut. And we started the company 18 months ago, and since founding, we've raised $13 million from some of the leading venture capitalists in Silicon Valley and LatAm, such as Founders Fund and Kazakh Ventures.
Thanks so much, Pablo. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive right into Q&A. As mentioned up top, over 55% of employment across Latin America is informal, and it's very common in times of crisis to see growth in the informal economy as people lose formal jobs or wages decrease. We've already seen this firsthand. In April, our portfolio company Neon in Brazil saw 40% of their customers making up for lost wages through additional gig work, or for the first time gig work. Well, we know, right, gig platforms bring informal workers online, helping them to formalize their livelihoods, improve their earnings opportunities, and potentially connecting them to digital financial products like payments or credit. Mateo, I'm curious, from your time at Uber, can you share more about why people prefer making money in the gig economy rather than in the informal sector or traditional industries?
Yes. And this is probably the base of the conversation of the AB5 bill in California, which wants these tech companies to consider their partners as full-time employees. So I'm going to give a little bit of my experience and my personal point of view to answer this question. First, I think there's definitely a flexibility angle here that is very attractive and that no other job offer can offer. And of course, this is being able to manage the person's time to their own convenience. They can log in or log on and log off the app whenever they can or they want to make an earning. Of course, there's the natural marketplace dynamics where there's peak hours and there's valley hours, which makes it a little bit interesting. And then second, I think, and this is specifically about Latin America, I think the gig economy job offers have evolved with the way, or even have helped change the way people in Latin America consume things like, for example, ordering food, car hailing, etc. And as a result, I think there's more opportunities in this segment than there are in other segments. And of course, there has been an increase in sophistication in these work options that make it even more attractive to the gig economy workforce. And a good example of this is, for example, tipping. Tipping was culturally in Latin America, we're not necessarily used to tip for these kinds of services. And now, especially after seeing it internally at Uber and helping roll this feature out in Latin America, we saw that tipping became or started constituting a big part of the earnings for this gig economy worker. So there is a shift in culture, there is a shift in behavior, and that has increased the interest for these segments. And lastly, I think it is a good opportunity for people to generate income in difficult times. Unfortunately, in Latin America, because due to the economic instability, a lot of people lose their jobs from one week to the next, and the gig economy workforce or the gig economy opportunity is one that they can easily jump in or jump out of, and it's a good way to generate income to maintain their families, and also it could be a full-time job or it could be something they consider between jobs. And I guess as a conclusion, I think the gig economy workforce, they do not necessarily want to be treated as full-time employees, going back to my first point of the AB5 bill in California. However, they do want the full-time employee benefits, and that's what we are building at HEAD. We're building those benefits for the gig economy workforce and trying to help these gig economy companies achieve that through a third party like us.
I think that point, Matteo, is super relevant on allowing workers the flexibility to as well piece together maybe multiple streams of income, either in supplement to formal work or informal work, or maybe for the first time. And Pablo A, in Colombia with R5, your target customer is generally making $700 or less a month. Can you tell us more about the demographics of your customer?
We sell insurance to this segment, and we also launched pilot tests for lending products. We have a good idea of this. I will say that some of the key characteristics of this segment is first of all, and this is pretty obvious, but rely on a phone and a vehicle to raise income, and this is extremely powerful for us at building financial products. The second thing we learned is that three different platforms at the same time, and one key aspect that we found is that this segment is extremely social. Okay, and this is interesting. They have different Facebook groups, they have different WhatsApp chats, so they share information really fast, and they are always looking for promotions or things that help them achieve their job better. And this could be a challenge or a blessing depending on your product. For example, if your product has a great market fit and a great value proposition, then you can really scale pretty fast. But if you're testing an MVP, it could be challenging. And the last thing I would add is, as you were saying, the amount of hours they need to put in to earn a decent income is really high. So this segment is extremely price sensitive, and they are always looking for offers or always looking for something that can help them either earn more money or spend less.
Yeah, I think that some of that price sensitivity goes to what we know about the underlying financial vulnerability of the population, right? There's as well high indebtedness, limited financial education, very unstable and volatile incomes. I think upwards of 25% swings month over month for the average e-hailer in Mexico. And so those challenges are not only really hard for gig workers themselves, but it's also really hard for them fintechs to serve them. And it can be hard to underwrite in those types of conditions. And then sort of as mentioned, there's this really interesting social dynamic and a dynamic of deep mistrust of the financial system that I think can be solved by tapping into this social networks in this community. Matteo, I'd love to start with you again, because Hero is building a very unique offline-online approach. We'd love for you to share more about that community first model and how it's going.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. So definitely, I think we built Heru with the premise that we wanted it to build a community first type of solution, and that basically means is we wanna help build the basis, and we want to understand our users to be able to then serve them adequately. And going a step back, I think the most fascinating thing about what's happening today in the gig economy workforce is that it's in a very nascent stage as we know it today, and that is tech related. And as we all know, it has evolved very fast in the last 6 months. It has probably evolved what it should have been evolving in 2 years. It evolved in 6 months. So there's a lot of things changing. The dynamic has shifted, and I still think that there's going to be a lot of job offerings that will migrate towards the gig economy type job. So we need to create products and services to better serve their needs, and that's why, of course, Pablo with Belvo and Pablo with Grupo R5, they're trying to build, and us as Header, we're trying to build, and we're trying to change sort of the way we serve this community. And in terms of financial instability, I think they're not necessarily illiterate in the sense of they do not understand the financials, but more likely I think it's we haven't built the correct tools or the correct products to be able to serve them the information they need to make their own decisions. And being a third-party solution at Heru, we help them provide this visibility because we're able to get all this information in working together with partners like Belvo, who help us extract this information, put it in one place, and then serve it to our communities, and they're able to make their own decisions in a better way. And I think today, for example, more than 65% of the ride-sharing transactions are made in cash, and this is a very important information. So yeah, I mean, we use all this information because we first built a community-first type of company. We understood these issues, and then we're helping create products from within. So that is our approach ahead.
And let's pull in Pablo V from Belvo into this conversation, especially as we're talking about the use of smartphones and the importance of the underlying data in order to figure out what are those appropriate financial products and how to offer those financial products. I think today it's somewhere like 68% of Latin Americans have a smartphone. By 2025, there's estimates that 90% of Latin Americans will have a device in their pocket that really is an operating window into gig work, income generating opportunities. Pablo, would love for you to share more about Belvo, how you're thinking about operating in this new data paradigm and opening that up to innovators like Pablo A. and Mateo.
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. So, I mean, one of the things that we've been seeing at Belvo has been, or in general across fintech in LatAm, is there's a lot of excitement about open banking and about connecting the different stakeholders around banking data to build better products, to create more empowerment and to ultimately provide better access and more democratic access to finance. But we think that LatAm, given the unique elements that define the region, really needs to go a little bit beyond that and think in terms of open finance, right? Because as you pointed out, right? So looking at the data, in some countries, more than 50% of the population don't have access to a bank and hence don't have banking data. Does that mean that they don't create financially worthy data to be offered financial products? Not at all. It's just that data has not been contextualized and has not turned into information that you can use to, underwrite a loan, issue a debit card, provide insurance products and so on, right? So I think this is very, very unique to LatAm, and conversely to what's happened in Europe or North America, where fintech and new payment technology has disrupted traditional banking historically. So the big innovators in the sector have stolen market share from banks effectively. There's a big opportunity by bringing a lot of these people that don't have access to banks via specific and new financial products to really increase inclusion and increase the total size of the pie, right? So it's as a catalyst to to actually making the pie bigger as opposed to stealing market share away from banks. I think, you know, in terms of you know, the data that we're seeing, you know, when you look at platforms like, you know, ride hailing or you know, food delivery and so on, you know, the Ubers, the Rappis, the Didis, and so on. One of the things that we found, you know, and you know, we're working with people in the space and with clients, is that a lot of these platforms are on the supply side, they're really built like banks, right? So, you know, riders, they get paid, they have payouts, there's metadata in every ride that's made, and there's really valuable contextualization that can be done to, you know, turn into information that folks can leverage, right? So if you look at, you know, payouts, right? So that's similar to income or bank transactions that go through your current account, right? So if you look at the revenue per week, that's predictability that you can plug into your underwriting model. If you look at, you know, repair data for a car or, you know, other metadata and specific transactions, you can, you know, get estimates for risk modeling. You look at rating for specific rides and stuff like that, or the duration of the relationship with the gig platform. That's a proxy for reputation. You add all those together, and you have, you know, extremely valuable data. That's only looking at the platforms themselves, right, where these people are employed. Then you also have, you know, looking at other data, you know, the centric operating system of these workers' lives, the phone. So you have stuff like, you know, phone bill, data usage. You know, Pablo was mentioning, you know, social activity, social media usage, that sort of stuff, right? So there's a lot more variables that to date we're not using and we're not building into our platform, into our API platform at Belvo, but that can be potentially very useful down the line as well.
Absolutely, and useful not only in that back-end underwriting and influencing of how products are created, but I think also in the first part of what products should be offered. We, in the recent longitudinal study in Brazil, asked gig workers what they were most concerned about and trying to figure out what financial products could then help them best. And we found the biggest concern was getting sick or getting in an accident and not being able to work, the risk of their vehicle or their phone, really their phone breaking, and then not being able to have access to work. And then there's, well, their ability to save for a home or school fees or some other form of financial goal. And of course, right, these products could be facilitated by financial products that are then backed up by all of this data that's being generated off of the phone and as well off of the platforms. Pablo A, with R5, you have such this interesting hook product of the mandatory SOAT insurance, the car insurance in Colombia, and then have started to cross-sell and experiment with other asset-backed lending products to gig workers and other customers. Can you tell us more about how you came up with those ideas and how it's going?
Yeah, sure. So absolutely. I mean, as I previously mentioned, we already have a large client base. The thing we do is we have this hook product, which is the SWAT, which is a mandatory insurance product. It costs around 150 USD. And the way we do this is this is our entry product, and then we cross-sell to different financial products. On the lending side, we offer asset-backed loans that rely on the vehicle as collateral to reduce risk. And on the insurance side, we're currently testing different propositions. For example, we were testing with telemedicine, with top-up car, and with personal accident cover. So I guess what we're trying to achieve is, since we already have a large base, we're trying to increase our footprint of products within their portfolio. And one of the interesting things I would like to share with you is that we have identified 2 opportunities within this segment. And I'm coming back to what I previously said, that what makes this segment different is that they rely on their vehicle. This could be a motorcycle, a car, or even a bike. And they rely on their smartphone to generate income. So what we're looking at is this. One product we're actually pretty excited about is financing the vehicle. So I don't know why, but in Latin America, there's this phenomenon in which there is this third party that is actually profiting from the work of these gig economy workers. They charge them daily rent. That's what we found out. And this greatly reduces the net income of these workers. So we made the numbers, and we are pretty sure we can finance the acquisition of the asset per se, or the vehicle. So that is something we're really excited about. And the other thing we're excited is around insurance. So we believe that this segment is extremely interested in insuring not only the vehicle, but also their phone. And we have seen many micro insurance products that we can offer to them. For example, if the screen breaks, we can actually take care of that as an insurance provider. So yes, it's something we're excited and we're working towards achieving.
Matteo, you've been nodding and smiling throughout, because Hiru is experimenting with multiple products that are similar, including one that's trying to help gig economy workers just make more money and increase their amount of income. What's working, what's not working? We'd love for you to share with us more about the product experimentation.
Yes, definitely. And going back to the previous point about building community first. So the first product we built at Heru is actually, we call them Heru Casas. So there are physical spaces where these gig economy workers actually meet, and they have access to bathrooms, chargers for their phones, tools to fix their bikes, motorcycles, vehicles. They have water, etc. And just as a fun fact, for example, or a worrying fact actually, at Uber we made this survey to understand why women didn't drive in these platforms, or we saw less percentage of women driving for these platforms. And one of the main points obviously is safety. The second one is access to bathrooms, and that is what we want to create. We want to create these communities. And what we have started seeing in these spaces is a lot of collaboration between our users. And this space has also provided us the space to interact with them on a daily basis, talk to them, understand what their pain points are, understand what their basic needs are. And we started experimenting a lot. So we have 3 products out. We have disability insurance. We have a working capital loan, which actually helps them on those tough times, on those tough weeks when they cannot work. We actually provide a card where they have access to a loan they can use to put a gasoline in their vehicle and actually work to earn more money. But 2 things we start seeing which are very interesting. One thing is we started experimenting, for example, with some couriers who started delivering by walking. So we provided a small loan, very easy to pay, tailor-made to their way of income, to buy a bicycle. And by buying a bicycle, they were able to be more efficient. And by being more efficient, as a result, they increased their earnings. So this was super interesting. We want to help create a career out of the gig economy workforce, because also going back to Uber, this is what we saw was hard. But to be able to create from an Uber's perspective, but from a third-party perspective, that's what we want to help create. We want to help create a career, and people who don't have a vehicle necessarily can strive to that, can actually create a career to earn a vehicle later on. And then the third thing, which is actually what you mentioned, is we're enabling this marketplace within our platform for people to access gig economy job offers on the spot. They can just access a job right there and then. And what we want to help create is actually create more opportunities to increase their income, especially for those people who work for deliveries or ride-hailing apps, which actually have a lot of peak hours, the very typical ones, no? So on those valley hours, we want to help create opportunities for them to continue to earn money and to increase their earnings. So that has been very interesting as an experiment. It has worked very well. Obviously, there are some things that are not working. For example, we need more companies to be able to share information with third-party companies like ours. And going back to Paulo V's point of opening or accessing information that will benefit our end customer or end partner, which in our case is the user per se. And also, I mean, in terms of creating a career and using that marketplace efficiently, there's also a sense of we need to work in terms of sophistication of the partner per se. There's information that can be shared within platforms. For example, things like rating, or a partner might have been kicked out of one platform. We need to understand if it was in terms of quality. Can we train that person to be able to increase their quality and be able to get back to that platform? And all that information and information sharing will help positively impact the partners and our users in the end.
This is a great segue, Mateo, into a conversation about partnering with the gig platforms. Right, across the region, there are varying levels of regulation and legal battles, as we know, over the question of employee versus contractor status of the gig workers. And it's a really important conversation to have, and it's a sensitive one, and it's one for a longer conversation and a follow-up. But I would love for us to dig into how we can best partner with gig platforms in order to unlock some of this data and better serve the workers. Mateo, going back to you and diving in maybe into the hero piece a bit more, you've begun to work with platforms, as you mentioned, as a third-party service provider. As you think about business model, right, why would the platforms not offer these products themselves and think about you as a third-party provider and not a competitor?
That's a great point. And I think that is the huge advantage we have as being a third-party provider and not being one of these companies, because our end user is basically our partner. It's not the platforms necessarily, and these platforms, they do specifically because of the AB5 bill in California and all this conversation going around considering these workers as full-time employees or not. These platforms have been very conservative in the way they serve their users, their end users, because if they serve them with specific services and products, they might end up crossing that employability line and then generating a liability. So us as a third party, we have that huge advantage because we're able to gather information from all platforms, put them in one place, also create risk profiles of each one of these individuals with information from all platforms, not necessarily only from banking institutions, but also from the platforms per se, as Pablo V was mentioning, number of trips per day, ratings, number of trips per week, etc. And all that information is very useful to be able to create that risk profile and be able to better serve them and create products that are tailor-made for them. So in general, we want to continue to partner up with these companies for them to see us as their way to serve their users with benefits through a third party and not incurring in that liability, which is the employment liability. I think in the near future, we wanna continue to help these companies, partner up with these companies, and also as a result be able to share information to serve these customers, but also share costs. And if we're able to share costs and to get to that point, I think it'll be beneficial for the three parties involved in this dance. But I think we're in a good direction. I think we need to further advance conversations with these platforms and with players like Grupo R5 and of course Belvo in the back end. I'm sure we're in the right path to do so.
Pablo V, on the back end, so much of what Mateo was talking about is catalyzed by the data you're able to provide. I imagine, right, the data is a very valuable asset to the platforms, but you've somehow been able to plug in and connect. Can you explain to us a little bit more, or share with us a little bit more about how you've been able to do that at Belvo and the inbounds that you've received in order to utilize that data?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work that we do with with gig platforms as a source of data is not very different to the work that we had already been doing and conducting with other sources of data. So primarily banks, right? So we're able to access data on the essential premise of end user consent, right? So under the same premise that open banking is built upon banking user or bank client consent, we do exactly the same, right? So, when a user wants to share, or a gig worker wants to share his or her Uber data or Rappi data with a third-party platform, the interface that we layer on top is exactly the same as if he or she were sharing access to BBVA or to Banamex or to Santander data, right? So I think this allows us to go very, very fast and access data directly to serve precisely the innovators that we serve in the space, right? So companies like Heru, for example. So, and I think this the know-how of having built banking or open banking products allows us to really have a specific know-how to turn this data into financially relevant information, right? So going really, really deep into the platform, how it's built, and some of the things that I was mentioning earlier, right? So looking at the metadata for each of the rides that someone does, right? And mining that for valuable information. And ultimately, a lot of this has come from just being in the sector and realizing what the pains of the sector are, and realizing that it's not necessarily an open banking thing. It's more an open finance thing, right? And that's kind of how we've been able to do that, right? I mean, at the moment, we're currently integrated with Uber. We'll soon be launching Rappi as well, and we'll also be integrating all other relevant ones across LatAm, right? So Corner Shop, Didi, and so on. And what's interesting as well is that all these platforms, aside from the fact that they're built like banks or like wallets on the supply side, is that they're truly like pan-regional, right? Or they're global in essence, right? So the moment you build out an integration for Uber for Mexico, that same integration serves Colombia, serves Brazil, serves Chile, serves all the markets that platforms like Heru, for example, can look to serve in the near future.
This theme of open banking or open finance, I like that broader aperture, is one that we follow very closely, not only in LatAm and the globe, but I say LatAm feels very far ahead of some other regions in thinking about how we can, again, like unlock these core data sets with user consent or consumer consent, and then be able to repackage that data back to them for the appropriate financial service that they're using. I'd say another trend, as we're coming up to the end of time here, I would be remiss not to talk about with you three, but is the impact of COVID-19 on the gig economy. And one of these trends that we've seen is a massive acceleration towards digitization and away from cash. Paulo and Mateo, you talked about the use of cash as a really core cornerstone of the gig economy, and so many of those transactions are still cash-based across the region. Can you talk a little bit more about what is changing with COVID-19 for the gig economy, besides the fact that the gig economy is likely to grow and get larger and be even more relevant, but what's happening on the financial services side with increased digitization?
Yeah, amazing. So definitely, speaking from a very privileged point of view, I think we've all realized that we are very reliant on gig economy platforms to take us from point B to point A to point B, to bring us food to our home, etc. And this will continue to be the trend, I believe, and fortunately create more job opportunities in Latin America. Yes, the use of cash is more than 65% of the trips in ride-hailing apps in Latin America are made in cash. So there is this component that we need to understand. There is this component that we need to integrate into our decisions and how we serve and create financial products to serve this population. Because as Pablo Viguera was mentioning in the beginning, yes, there is information that there's available, but there's also information that we need to understand by creating this community, by speaking to them, etc., to better create risk profiles, either for the insurance world or for the financial world that make more sense. On the other side of the coin, very fortunate for us at Heru, this pandemic made more evident that these workers are underserved in many ways, and we, just by, for example, our Heru Casas, placing a shelter over their heads to protect them from the sun, from the water, from rain, providing bathrooms, etc. That created this sense of community, which we now have, and now we can better understand from within what we need to create to better serve them. So I think COVID definitely exacerbated the need for the gig economy workforce, and for us as entrepreneurs, change the underlying or that base for us to be able to continue to grow in that direction.
I think this is a perfect place for us to wrap and doing a quick time check. Like any good conversation, there's always far more to talk about than we have time for. Well, I hate to cut us off. I do encourage those who are listening, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us, but please reach out and contact us. I won't speak for the entrepreneurs, but we at Flourish Ventures would really love to hear from you. What we care about at the end of the day is supporting innovative entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are thinking about better serving the gig economy and other vulnerable populations in LatAm and across the globe with appropriate financial services that are unique and tailored to them. So with that, just thank you so much again, Mateo, Pablo A, Pablo B, for the time, as well as Finovista for having us. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. Andres, I'll pass the mic back to you.
Thank you, Jenny. Muchas gracias, Jenny, Mateo, Pablo y Pablo. Qué fascinante la conversación que habéis podido mantener, ¿no? y la oportunidad que habéis dado a todos los asistentes de este evento, ¿no? Pues en profundizar, ¿no? Profundizar sobre las oportunidades que presenta el FinTech, ¿no? Pues dentro de este segmento, ¿no? del gig economy, ¿no? Y en concreto para los trabajadores, ¿no? Pues que obviamente sí son necesitados, ¿no? de servicios financieros, ¿no? Y que vosotros, como muchos más FinTechs, están llevando, ¿no? Están trayendo al mercado en la región. Muchas gracias a todos. Os invito a que apaguéis cámaras y audio ahora. Y bueno, estaremos en contacto próximamente. Muchas gracias. Bien, pues bienvenido de vuelta a todos. Bueno, mejor dicho, bienvenido de vuelta a mí, que soy el que he estado fuera de cámara durante un tiempo. Quisiera ahora pues pasar a nuestro siguiente bloque, ¿no? de contenido para el evento de hoy. Para esta edición de FINNOSUMMIT Hour nos dimos la tarea de salir a buscar a las startups más prometedoras para que hagan un pitch durante este evento, ¿no? Startups pues, relevantes, ¿no? Dentro del segmento, ¿no? que estamos tratando hoy en día con la temática de FinTech y el gig economy. En esta ocasión nos acompañan 3 startups, ¿no? En concreto, y 3 emprendedores, ¿no? Fundadores, fundadoras, ¿no? de sus startups. Vamos a tener la oportunidad de escuchar a Victoria Blanco de Abaco LatAm, a Martín Maza de Pago 46 y Maite Muñiz de Truora, quienes hoy vienen a contarles precisamente, ¿no? de qué van sus soluciones. Pongan mucha atención a los pitches porque antes de finalizar el evento le vamos a pedir a ustedes, a la audiencia, que vote, ¿no? a través de SparkUp, que vote a su startup favorita. Si bien antes nada, vamos directo a los vídeos. Gracias a todos y bueno, por favor dirigir vuestra atención a la pantalla para estos 3 pitches.
Nosotros somos Abaco, un SaaS para la inclusión financiera en América Latina. Yo soy Victoria, fundadora y CEO de Abaco. Imaginemos que un rapitendero decide solicitar un crédito. En primer lugar, le van a pedir una nómina. Como no la tiene, ya que ellos entran y salen de las apps sin ningún tipo de vinculación laboral, le pedirá unos extractos bancarios. Tampoco los va a tener porque no están bancarizados en su mayoría y utilizan billeteras para recibir sus ingresos. Además, manejan mucho efectivo y sus extractos tampoco reflejan la realidad del cliente. Si conseguimos encontrar alguno que cumpla el filtro 1 y el filtro 2, probablemente esté reportado negativamente en centrales de riesgo o no exista ninguna información sobre él en estas centrales. Abaco ataca el problema de acceso a financiación por parte de los independientes y no bancarizados en América Latina, que constituyen en torno a 350 millones de personas. Abaco ha empezado a atacar este problema por los gig economy workers. Nuestra solución se centra en un SaaS que permite a las instituciones financieras acceder al segmento de baja bancarización y independientes. Estamos generando los historiales de crédito de los trabajadores digitales. Nuestra solución se centra en 3 patas. La primera de ellas, un credit score inclusivo, donde a través de una metodología diferente a la que utiliza la banca e información alternativa a la tradicional, estamos generando nuestro propio score de crédito. La segunda pata centrada en una billetera y soportada por licencia de Banking as a Service, que nos permite tener un medio de recaudo escalable. A partir de esta billetera hacemos un débito automático de las cuotas de los créditos de nuestros clientes, aportando mayor seguridad al producto. También hemos transformado el tradicional crédito contra autónomos en un crédito contra nómina. Y la última fase es la generación de procesos de captación de información que permiten alimentar nuestro modelo. Hemos generado un fuertísimo impacto de inclusión financiera con la atracción de nuestra cartera actual en Colombia. El 95% de los clientes que tenemos no son atendidos por la banca y el 65% son venezolanos sin documentación colombiana. Con la llegada del COVID, las flotas de gig economy se han incrementado. Además, los productos que Abaco financia, que son en su mayoría repuestos y accesorios de moto, se han convertido en actividad esencial durante toda la cuarentena y han permanecido abiertas, lo que a nosotros nos ha favorecido que nuestra atracción también se haya incrementado. El proceso que tenemos es 100% digital, sin necesidad de contacto humano. Somos un equipo que está cambiando las microfinanzas en América Latina, un equipo técnico formado por exemprendedores y un equipo de negocio con un altísimo conocimiento local. Además, contamos con un grupo de advisors centrados y muy especializados en Fintech y inclusión financiera. Abaco está modificando y generando verdadero impacto con su inclusión financiera. Gracias.
Muchas gracias por tenernos hoy acá presentando con ustedes y toda esta audiencia oportunidades en la economía colaborativa. Un gusto contarles más acerca de Pago 46 y cómo estamos teniendo un impacto en esta industria colaborativa a través de toda la región de Latinoamérica. ¿Qué estamos resolviendo a través de Pago 46? Estamos haciendo que los pagos en los mercados emergentes sean más convenientes, beneficiosos y más seguros para todos los participantes a través de la cadena de valor de pagos. Pensemos un segundo, ¿no? Hoy en nuestros territorios en América Latina, uno normalmente paga con efectivo para ciertos bienes y servicios, ya sea porque no tiene una cuenta bancaria o también vemos usuarios bancarizados que desconfían de usar medios de pagos electrónicos. Y la verdad, viendo esa experiencia de pago, vemos que es muy difícil, inconveniente, pensémoslo, de repente implica imprimir un cupón, acercarse a un lugar para terminar haciendo un pago físico con efectivo, hacer líneas, y esto es muy frustrante y pierde tiempos y costos para toda la cadena de valor. Es por esto que creamos Pago 46, la primera experiencia de pago a través de una comunidad descentralizada, on demand y móvil, para poder hacer pagos convenientes en cualquier momento y lugar. Nos gusta decir, somos PayPal más Uber. Como PayPal, nuestros comercios que forman parte de nuestra red suman una opción de pago conveniente de forma digital, y como Uber ponemos una red colaborativa de usuarios que pueden estar disponibles para cuando los consumidores necesitan hacer pagos en efectivos. ¿Por qué nos llamamos Pago 46? Básicamente vemos esta franja en el mundo, 23 grados al norte y al sur del Ecuador, donde hay más de 2 billones de personas sin cuentas bancarias y más del 80% de las transacciones se hacen en efectivo. Comenzamos esto en Latinoamérica, pero esto es un problema global. Nuestro servicio es muy sencillo. Los consumidores seleccionan la opción de Pago 46 al momento de hacer sus pagos, eligen conectar con un usuario fijo móvil, y a través de códigos QR se encuentran con el usuario de Pago 46 y pagan en efectivo. De esta forma, nuestros usuarios hacen dinero adicional bajo demanda, nuestros comercios que se adhieren a la red pueden acceder a un mercado no bancarizado y crecer sus ventas, y los consumidores pagan en efectivo en cualquier momento y lugar. Nos consideramos una aplicación compañera a los demás servicios de la economía colaborativa, ya sea porque los usuarios de nuestra aplicación pueden pagar sus servicios a través de Pago 46 y ganar ingreso adicional con nuestra aplicación, recolectando estos pagos en efectivos. Ofrecemos varios métodos de pago, lo llamamos Mirap, On Demand, a través de una billetera y también a través de partners. Hoy trabajamos con todas las principales compañías dentro de lo que es la economía colaborativa, y demás servicios también, Telefónica, Netflix, Virgin Mobile y otras compañías de renombre en la región. También le damos un POS móvil a nuestros usuarios para que hagan más dinero bajo demanda, procesando y recibiendo pagos en efectivo, y estamos desarrollando esta infraestructura móvil disponible 24/7 para que más usuarios puedan tener más medios de pago convenientes y acceder a una red de cash in y cash out móvil a través de toda Latinoamérica. Quedamos disponibles para ahora a contestar preguntas durante el resto del panel.
Hola a todos, yo soy Maite y les quiero contar un poco de Trora. Trora es una startup que está enfocada en prevención de fraude a través de distintas tecnologías. Yo soy Maite Muñiz, soy mexicana y me encargo de todo el área de producto en la empresa. Somos una empresa que lleva más de 2 años en el mercado latinoamericano, trabajamos en más de 8 países con muchísimas industrias, pero en particular con lo que son marketplaces y el gig economy. Tenemos más o menos 80 ingenieros de software dedicados al 100% en diseñar las mejores tecnologías para atacar la creatividad latinoamericana en cuanto a fraude y en cuanto a lo que realizan en la región y el cómo perjudican un poco la economía. Nuestro objetivo es que con estas soluciones podamos ayudar a tu negocio a crecer sin que sea disruptivo para tus usuarios finales. Nuestra primera solución son background checks. Esto es una verificación de antecedentes completamente alineada con las regulaciones de GDPR y manejo de regulaciones de datos. Es muy rápida, se realiza un check en más o menos 30 segundos y es completamente exhaustiva. Para que tengan un poco de idea, en los últimos meses más o menos hemos hecho 200,000 validaciones mensuales. Nuestro segundo producto se enfoca en que tú puedas entender quién es el usuario final con el que estás interactuando en el momento específico. Entonces, esto se hace a través de validación del documento, es decir, que no sea falso el documento, validación del dispositivo, ya sea con un email o con diferentes llamadas o mensajes al celular, con un cuestionario de preguntas de identidad personalizado o con pruebas de biometría, como es validación de cara, con prueba de vida o validación de voz. Cada una de estas son como piezas de rompecabezas y puedes elegir la que más les sirva a tu negocio. Y por último tenemos nuestro producto de Signals, que te ayuda a usar las tecnologías más modernas y más actualizadas en el mercado, como son inteligencia artificial y machine learning, para que lean toda tu data, entiendan toda la data de comportamiento de tus usuarios, tus clientes, tus empleados y te ayuden a identificar patrones de fraude. Y no solo eso, sino te mandan alertas automatizadas para que puedas tomar acciones antes de que el fraude te lo cometan. Finalmente, les cuento un poco de TrueVerifica. Esta solución la creamos junto con nuestros ya clientes del gig economy y lo que buscamos es que podamos identificar a esos colaboradores en tiempo real cuando están realizando sus tareas, ya sea que los quiera identificar el portero de un edificio o el policía que esté en la calle para asegurarse que nadie los esté personificando. Aquí lo que buscamos es mantener la seguridad completa de la región, de nuestros ciudadanos y completamente de estos colaboradores que nos ayudan día a día. Esto es un poco de Trora, tenemos una suite de productos muy grandes y cualquier duda que tengan, no deben contactarnos para que les contemos un poco más cómo se alinea con su negocio. Gracias.
1 al aire.
Muy bien, bienvenidos de vuelta. Muchas gracias, Victoria, Martín y Maite. Gran trabajo con sus empresas y muy interesante cómo están poniendo allá afuera soluciones innovadoras para mejorar la vida financiera de los trabajadores del gig economy. Sin duda, son pasos grandes dentro del segmento de inclusión financiera, una de las causas por las cuales también trabajamos fuerte desde Finovista. Bien, ahora antes de pasar a la votación, para que ustedes, la audiencia, puedan votar su startup favorita de estas 3, quisiera invitarlos a ver las soluciones de nuestro segundo sponsor, Galileo.
Galileo's powerful APIs and payment processing platform offer the easiest way to create sophisticated card-based and digital financial solutions with power, speed, and simplicity, which is why the world's most innovative fintechs have chosen us to power their businesses. And now, Galileo is operating live in Latin America from our base offices in Mexico City, delivering the advanced financial technology to support you to challenge the status quo. In Mexico, we're certified to support domestic issuers, enabling fintechs to quickly launch payment services that empower and delight their customers. Whether you're focusing on digital banking, empowering the underserved, or delivering social benefits, we're here to support your fintech business, because Galileo does that. Let's get started together.
Al aire SparkUp.
Muy bien, pues bienvenidos de vuelta ahora sí. Y regresamos, como pueden ver en sus pantallas, con la herramienta de SparkUp, que pueden acceder, como ven ahí, mediante código QR, escaneándolo desde su teléfono móvil o introduciendo en su navegador web finovista.sparkup.live, introduciendo el código AUVVP. Accediendo con estos códigos, vamos a poder votar a la startup favorita que acaba de hacer pitch, ¿no? Entonces tienen 3 opciones. A, si su favorita ha sido Abaco LatAm, presentada por Victoria Blanco. B, si su startup favorita ha sido Pago 46, presentado por Martín. O C, si su startup favorita ha sido Truora, presentada por Maite Muñiz. Ahí vamos a darle tiempo a la audiencia para que puedan hacer su votación. Recuerden, estamos votando a la startup favorita. No hay ningún premio, no hay ningún ganador. Simplemente pues, ver un poco la audiencia cómo ha votado, ¿no? Y cómo ha percibido estos pitches, ¿no? Para que nos den su opinión sobre cuál es de estas 3 su startup favorita. Las 3 de ellas, les recuerdo, pues, ofreciendo soluciones relevantes para la economía colaborativa, para el gig economy. Nos vamos a dar unos segundos más para que aquellos miembros de la audiencia que no hayan accedido todavía puedan hacerlo. Por ahora, si bien vamos cerca, es Abaco quien acaba de tomar el... no, Truora. Esto parece una carrera de caballos. Vamos a ver que entren más votaciones. Si no, vamos a cerrar en 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ahí está. Truora ha sido votada startup favorita de esta sesión de pitches del FINNOSUMMIT Hour, en el cual pues, hemos visto 3 soluciones, 3 soluciones, ¿no? Que están operando dentro de la economía digital, la economía colaborativa del gig economy. Muchas gracias. Podemos volver a cámara. Y bueno, antes de cerrar, quisiera invitar a nuestra audiencia en esta ocasión, ¿no? Anunciar que tenemos novedades. Y dado que nos gustaría verlos, escucharles a todas, a nuestra audiencia, al terminar esta transmisión en unos minutos, vamos a estar habilitando un Zoom abierto para aquellos que deseen seguir la conversación, exponer sus ideas, ser escuchados y poder mantener una conversación pues, más profunda con otros asistentes para seguir fomentando el networking de la comunidad que nos sigue. El link al Zoom de este After Hour de FINNOSUMMIT Hour lo pueden encontrar en la pestaña Agenda o Schedule, para los que tengan Umbrella en inglés, que se encuentra en el menú izquierdo de la pantalla de Umbrella. De nuevo, les invito a quien quiera seguir la conversación, quiera tener voz propia en esta conversación, tenga una idea que exponer, una opinión que compartir, pues que participe con nosotros en este After Hour mediante Zoom. Y el link lo pueden encontrar en la pestaña Agenda o Schedule para los que tengan esta plataforma Umbrella en inglés. Sin más, yo me despido agradeciéndoles a todos su asistencia. En el booth de Finovista, dentro de la categoría Sponsors, pueden encontrar la encuesta de satisfacción de este evento. Les pido, por favor, que nos compartan su opinión, que nos ayuden a mejorar este evento para las próximas ediciones. Les pedimos que tomen un minuto de su tiempo para contestar la encuesta, la cual nos ayudará, como he dicho, ¿no? Pues a seguir mejorando estos eventos que estamos organizando. Que tengan un muy buen día. Les esperamos en la próxima edición de FINNOSUMMIT Hour, el 24 de septiembre. Marquen ya sus calendarios. 24 de septiembre estaremos de vuelta con ustedes. Y sigan al pendiente de todas nuestras novedades a través de las redes sociales para conocer los detalles que iremos publicando muy pronto sobre este próximo evento. También síganos en las redes pues, para conocer quién ha sido el ganador de esos 2 boletos para asistir en persona a FINNOSUMMIT 2021 en Ciudad de México. Por último, agradecer a nuestros 2 sponsors, Galileo y Tiaxa. Muchas gracias, ya que sin ustedes este evento no sería posible. Muchas gracias a todos, que tengan una buena tarde y un gran fin de semana. Y nos vemos próximamente en una nueva edición de FINNOSUMMIT Hour. Muchas gracias a todos.